Folks are still talking about Sanae Takashi wants to make Japan great again. It won't be easy. So the world's most powerful woman, trade or trap, Japan investors bet on Takeshi after that landslide victory that she had. And Taiwan president vows to strengthen island's defenses in Lunar New Year message. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. So Lay pledges progress in LNY address, and U.S. is pushing Taiwan to boost defense spending and China's threat, and all along those lines. And definitely, like I said, there's news in the Middle East with 12 said killed in an IDF Gaza strikes, including a senior Islamic Jihad commander. So that's something that folks are talking about in the Middle East. And massive demonstrations were held to oppose Iran's government. So folks are talking about that as well, as hundreds of thousands joined Iran protests around the world. So son of Iran's last Shah urges U.S. military intervention in Iran, and thousands are rallying for Iran regime change in cities around the world. And Lunar New Year 2026 marks the beginning of the Year of the Horse. So this is the Year of the Horse. So definitely folks will be doing that are following that kind of practice in terms of Asia and all along those lines. So I'll bring Rick in to see what he's got to say about these stories and all along those lines, and see what he's got going on in his world. And
I got a couple things.
Yeah.
I have a couple. Obama had a busy weekend. He was at the NBA All-Star game. A ball flew out of bounds. He caught the ball. And the NBA has a new, really fun All-Star format. They split the All-Stars into 3 teams, 2 American and 1 European, because a lot of NBA players are from Europe. And they played four mini games of 12 minutes each, and it was a fun, exciting format. And they should probably try something like this with other All-Star games, like the NFL, the Major League Baseball, because All-Star games are kind of a bummer. They're not. But anyway, the other thing with Obama was on a podcast, and they asked him, "Are aliens real?" Obama said yes.
Obama said that they are real.
So he said, I have seen no evidence of this. He said that, that given the size, the number of solar systems in the universe, it's statistically likely that aliens exist, but the distances between solar systems make it unlikely that we've ever been visited by aliens. And this is such a crazy statement because it gets a 10 out of 10 for being a smart, reasonable, well-informed point of view that understands science. And remember when we had this guy as president compared to the current guy who stared at the sun because somebody told him not to, and he had to show that he was the boss of the sun. Our current president is a dildo. We used to have a smart president.
Yeah, we did used to have a smart president. And I also understand he had some comments about the clown show that the Trump administration is, and he had some other less than friendly things to say in that regard. So
good, because Obama, one of Obama's biggest problems is that he was conflict averse. He was no drama Obama, which let the Republicans play him. They denied him a Supreme Court seat, and he didn't fight back hard enough. And now we've got this really goofy Supreme Court. Like Obama was a good president, but if between him and Hillary, I kind of wanted Hillary because Hillary was already wildly pissed off at the Republicans. She already knew that they wouldn't play fair. Obama often gave Republicans the opportunity to play fair, and they never did. So
they don't like to play fair. I did see that there's some online activity on that Canadian school shooter that says that he had a fascination with mass violence. So Canadians are with you, says the Prime Minister at the Tumbler Ridge video that was held a couple of days ago, and everything like that. And there was also some reports that folks needed to stop pretending the Tumbler Ridge killer was female. So definitely that's some stuff that's going on in Canada. And apparently some ministers in London want to reform sin, but they are trending very carefully. So they're saying that they fear, the Guardian does, that the Labour Party special needs revolution will instead be a catastrophic letdown. So swifter actions will help us solve the special needs crisis. So apparently they're trying to have some addressing of special needs and everything along those lines. So we'll see how that plays out as well. So lots going on in the world, and folks are still talking about Gazelle Pellicott, and A Hymn to Life is a memoir of Gazelle Pellicott, and apparently some folks are saying it's a powerfully written feminist work and everything like that. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And no business as usual with the U.S., says the Latvian prime minister. And I think that we had a tight match last weekend or over the weekend, or maybe it was last week with Latvia in Winter Olympics. So they gave us all we could handle for the first couple of periods, and then I think we won like 4-1 or 5-1.
In hockey?
Yeah, in hockey.
I think, aren't we doing the gold medal? Either the men's or the women's hockey team is playing for a gold medal in the
I think you're right, and I think it's the women, but I think the men are playing later. But both teams are doing well, so both of them may get a gold medal. Last time I saw, we were stuck on 17. I haven't looked at the medal count today, so we were stuck on 17. I think Norway and the
most tied for third, I think.
Yeah, tied for third with Japan,
which is pretty standard, pretty good for the U.S. in the Winter Olympics. Because
that's not bad in the Winter Olympics and everything like that. Apparently, Ukrainian anti-graft authorities have detained the former energy minister at the border. So apparently, they're dealing with a war, but also dealing with some anti-corruption stuff as well. So they detained their ex-energy minister at a high level as a high-level corruption case widened. So apparently they're dealing with the war, but also dealing with a corruption case as well. It looks like
we have new jobs numbers. We have January jobs numbers, and we have revised 2025 job numbers. And the federal, the number out of the government for January this year, 130,000 jobs added, which is well above the expected 55,000 jobs, but you can't necessarily trust the numbers out of the government, and those numbers will be revised within a month or two because they always issue revised numbers. So we'll see. The Trump administration is saying this is a great number. This is an average number. This is a pretty standard number. If you look back over every year from 2011 on, this would be considered a normal number. It's just better compared to the crap numbers from 2025, because according to the revised numbers from 2025, in the last 8 months of the year, the U.S. added only 12,000 jobs, which is a 99% reduction from previous years. So overall, the job numbers are super crappy.
Sounds like they're super crappy and everything. It looks like the Pope is praying for victims of the devastating cyclones in Madagascar and everything like that. And the ultra left is blamed for youth killings that shocked France over the weekend. So student death puts French far left under pressure, and Macron urges calm after activist death sparked a political clash, and all along those lines. So we got that going on. And the UK will be tightening online safety laws for AI chatbots and everything like that. Indonesia is saying 8,000 troops are ready for a possible peacekeeping mission in Gaza. So it says Indonesia says it's preparing thousands of peacekeepers to go into the Gaza area and everything like that. But at least 6,000 were killed over 3 days during an RSF attack on Sudan's El Fasher, according to what the UN is reporting. So, like I said, there's a lot going on in the world and a lot of conflict.
But you mentioned the Vatican. The Vatican is ready to beatify, which is, well, I think one step before under turning somebody into a saint. They're ready to beatify a U.S. Archbishop, Fulton Sheen, for being a very effective. You need to do good works in the church, and you need to have a miracle associated with you. Somebody kind of prayed for you and prayed to you or something, and then anyway, you were associated with the miracle. So this guy, who was popular in the 60s and 70s, he was one of the first Catholic bishops to go on TV to evangelize, and so he was supposed to get beatified in 2019, but then they slowed it down because there's some controversy that he maybe shuffled some bad priests from, parish to parish, that the church would often take, molesty priests and move them around when they got in trouble. But anyway, there's been after a 6-year delay, he's ready to get beatified by the Catholic Church.
Sounds good. Sasha, I saw that there was some stuff going on with the corruption in the Ukraine, but it doesn't stop them from beating Russia in the war and everything like that. So what can you tell us about what's going on with the investigation and just in general and everything like that? Because we do hear that there's a lot taking place, and definitely love to hear your take on a number of these stories.
Well, what can I say? Corruption is the major factor in almost any country, everywhere. Ukraine is not exceptional, although it's improved substantially its record on inflation. Don't forget that Ukraine is coming from the Soviet Union, where corruption was everything, and it's very, very difficult to escape that route. But Ukraine is definitely doing quite well on its way, especially now when there are so many joint ventures between Ukraine and Western countries.
Oh, here's a story. So the DOJ keeps saying that all of the Epstein files have been released, even though there are 3 million documents that are known to not have been released. But now here is an investigation by the UK broadcaster Channel 4 News that says that maybe only 2% of the data in the Epstein files have been released, that they've only released maybe 2 terabytes of data, and that the FBI thinks there are 50 terabytes of data. So they're sitting on a ton of stuff and telling us that it's all been released, which is consistent with their behavior over the past year. That, so we'll see if anybody can get them to budge.
Well, a few words about this just completed conference in Munich, Germany. The major question for Europeans was how a country that claims that Russia is its best friend and Europe is its enemy, how can you actually accept that and to continue to function as everything is normal with that country? That country obviously is the United States. And you see, the problem is that it's not the vision of American people or even its Senate or House that view. It's only view of one person, Donald Trump, but who completely dominates Senate. House, probably not anymore. But let's see, midterm election may clear the air and really put everything in its places. But this is absolutely horrible equation. And so Europeans are now thinking more and more in terms of their independence from US, unwillingness to cooperate with US, buying US products, US arms, weapons, and in fact, all world is now unites economically to inflict as much damage on United States economically, first of all, as possible.
If that makes a lot of sense. Nick, I see you joined us. By the way, Sasha wanted to apologize. You're on mute, by the way, or I'm not hearing you and everything.
Nick,
but
we
Sasha,
can't hear your voice, Nick.
Yeah, we can't hear your voice. But Sasha, I wanted to apologize. They've changed some format stuff here in the StreamYard, so I think that I accidentally hit a button, but I'm trying to figure out this new format. So my apologies to you.
No problem.
I'll try to work this out.
Okay, more stuff. Trump, for the first time, his approval on Silver Bulletin has dropped below 41% to a new low of, at least this term, of 40.5% for a net negative disapproval of 15%. With this level of disapproval, the Democrats are certainly going to take the House unless Trump can figure out a way to fiddle with the elections. And he says he will fiddle with the elections, except that's unconstitutional. So anything he tries, he will be taken to court. And any reasonable court will shoot him down because the language of the Constitution is clear. And
how long is the shutdown going to last? Because we're still facing another shutdown. How long do you think that's going to last?
I don't know. I mean, Trump now has had more days of shutdown and more shutdowns than every other president combined. So, yeah, I don't know. Here's some either encouraging or discouraging news, which is new findings say that consciousness, thinking, you could be aware of what's going on for hours after you die. And
well, that's exciting.
That people report that they have that people have a heart attack and they're pretty much dead, but somehow they get brought back after 5 minutes or 7 minutes because lunatic doctors are like, I'm not giving up, and people brought back after a long time without heart function were able to say what was going on, and like they're in the ER even though they were dead. So that's creepy. They in the French Revolution days, I think when they cut off your head, they would pick it up by the hair and then turn your face around so you could see your headless body, just as like one last little FU to you. And so there's evidence that people can think for a long time, and people are doctors. So these researchers are urging doctors in emergency situations to not give up, to keep trying to resuscitate people for longer than they usually do.
What do you think about
really
that, Nick?
Exciting. Maybe what we should do is have a whole special on death.
We should. Dr. Patmos can talk about it.
Yeah, that's true. I'll get Dr. Patmos to do a half an hour on death and dying, since it's really a hot topic everybody gets to experience. I have a book here on how not to die. I don't know if it's going to work, but somebody bought one of my kids.
Well, there are people some experts in the field of AI. One guy is saying what you want to do is not die for the next 3 years. If you can live for the next 3 years, you might be able to live indefinitely because AI will bring us so many improvements in the field of medicine.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, the main ones will be cancer and then heart disease, since those are the two big killers. So I'll get Dr. Patmos to discuss that on this week's upcoming show. Oh, by the way, speaking of upcoming show, I saw the Judith Polgar documentary. It was actually pretty good. It's on Netflix, even if you don't play chess. But of course, I was a chess fanatic.
Very well done. Very well.
Yeah, I was a chess fanatic my younger, more halcyon days. And then I saw a YouTube video where Ron Henley, who I used to bum around with, beat Judith Polgar in a speed game when Ron was probably at his best and Judith was still on her way up. And it was on a YouTube special, so you can watch it on YouTube.
I saw the first half. The first half is about just the Polgar sisters, the dad turning them into chess prodigies.
Yeah.
Then
I got to play one of them. I got to play Sofia right after she won the Rome tournament. That was not a good experience. I played her at Bermuda International. That was not a good game for me. So she just like tore me apart. I was like, ah.
So the dad, they're an impoverished family living in a crappy apartment in Hungary, and the dad like reads a lot of biographies of prodigies and thinks I can turn my daughters into prodigies, and he homeschools them. He sets up a chess academy.
You notice, Rick, they did it when they're younger. See, that's the thing. I was good when I was like 15 years old. So, and if between ages of like 14, 15, 12, even 12, when she was good, that's when you become good. In other words, you got to be good in your teens. What I see on the
It's
internet,
like learning a
goes
foreign language. It's like you try to
Yeah.
learn a foreign language as an adult, and it doesn't go so smoothly. If you
Right.
learn two languages when you're a baby, if you grow up in a
you
bilingual
learn it
house,
when you're younger, right? Well, there's always on Quora. I'm 22 years old and I'm thinking about becoming a grandmaster. I'm starting to play chess. If I played 10 hours, I'm not going to think it's no. You have no shot.
no,
If you're 22
the
years
dad
old, you're not
was
an international master. You have no chance being a
the dad
grandmaster.
was working them out from the time they were like 4. He had like
That's right. That's basically when you start. In other words, 4 to 6, and they work 8 hours, 10 hours a day, every day, year
and
in,
then
year
by the
out. Then they
time
become good.
Judith Polgar is 12, she's maybe in the top 3 in the world, and her government, the communist government of Hungary, hated it, kept wouldn't let them go travel to tournaments until they managed they managed to get out of the country one time when she was 12, and her older sisters, and they took the World Women's Championship, and after that the government loosened up a little bit.
Yeah, once they won the Olympiad, and I didn't know she beat Peter Kramling the last round in the Salenka. I had no idea because but by the time she got good at that stuff, I was kind of on my way out. I went to law school and I was sort of done with chess. I played occasionally. That's the reason I played Sofia. It's kind of an occasional game for me. I luckily won my 3rd state championship, but I wasn't really playing that active.
Yeah, Nick, getting off chess for a second. I got a legal question for you because apparently, because I know I have an Android,
people
and you have an iPhone and everything, but Android users in the U.S. are getting paid $100 from Google because apparently there was a class action settlement against Google, and the company has agreed to pay $135 million to Android users in the United States, with the settlement reached in the California federal court. So the lawsuit claims that Google conducted passive data transfers without the knowledge of the users or consent between November 12, 2017, and the final date of the settlement period. So, I mean, it's only just going to be pocket change, but should I go ahead and try to get this money that they're apparently given and everything like that? Because apparently there's a settlement where they're paying folks to actually.
I mean, if you have an Android, you should be able to Google it, find the website, and then you sign up.
Yeah, and you file a claim. But the people who do the best off those class action suits are the law firms, because they get a percentage of like everything that goes through there.
They get like a third of it.
A lot of the settlements, they're so small. By the time it gets to you, they'll say, "Well, you get a credit if you."
Well, that's probably what this is, because this is what they said. This is what they said, because like I said, you're not going to get hardly anything. It says as part of the more recent suit, if you're affected, you shouldn't have to do anything. You'll automatically receive a one-time prorated cash payment in the payment account associated with your current Google account email. Payouts should go to PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle connected accounts, and are limited to $100 per person. So a settlement administrator will provide an online form for those who want to update payment methods or account information. So the date of final approval is yet to be approved. So basically,
it's nice. Like, you'll fill out a form, and then 2 years from now, when they get done, you'll get a surprise payment.
Right.
What happens if you don't have a Google account?
That could be problematic.
I don't have a Google account, so
then it sits in some escrow account until eventually probably the lawyers figure out how to raid the account.
Yeah.
They get an extra.
Well, actually, when you talk about escrow accounts, people should know this. There's a lot of money that actually is cheats to the state. I'm serious. So whatever state you live in, because I have like insurance renewals every now and then, I'll collect, $500 or $1,000 on renewals that went to the state, and they just never informed me about it. So what you have to do is you have to go to your state and ask them, is there any money laying around for me?
Well,
speaking of suits, reason that they sent it to the state. I'm serious.
But Nick, speaking of suits, apparently, and I know you're not a big fan of this network I'm going to mention, even though my parents were an affiliate of that when they had the radio station, but apparently a longtime NPR radio host is suing Google, and you're going to love this, Rick, for allegedly stealing his voice for the male podcaster voice in its AI podcast tool, according to a suit filed in Santa Clara County, California. So David Green, the former host of Morning Edition and Up First and current voice of KCRW's Left, Right, and Center, said he first heard of Notebook LM Google's AI tool that turns out automated podcasts on demand when a former colleague emailed him. So apparently he's the 148th person to ask this. Did you license your voice to Google? So apparently he didn't license his voice to Google. So now he's suing them and everything like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, and they can do analysis and find out, and they probably did. Yeah. They scrub, they scour, they scrape all sorts of data, including the quality of people's voices
or your voice. Here's the latest scam that you have to give scam artists some credit. You know how they say, well, I've got some money for you. Let's say the Google thing's a scam. Call us up and let us know about you about filing a claim. And they say, are you? And then the minute you call up, they say, Mark, are you here to file a claim? And you say the word yes. Okay. They capture the word yes from your voice, and then they use it to basically open up credit cards under your name, because they say, hi, I'm Mark Lee. Are you interested in a credit card? And then they have your voice recording, and he goes, yes. Well, that must be Mark Lee. That's his voice. And then they open up a credit card in your name, and then they take all the money out. All I can say is that's brilliant. That's a brilliant scam. So what happens is they're trying right now, the scammers, to get you to respond to telephone calls, to anything, so they can basically copy your voice down and then use it to open up credit cards or open up bank accounts and then take your money out of the account. You know, you can't make this stuff up.
You can't make this stuff up. But you can't make stuff up. And I'm trying to figure out why Ukraine hasn't done this. Maybe Sasha can explain to me, because one of their dissidents, they apparently killed with a dart frog and everything like that. The Russians did. So why has Ukraine found a bunch of dart frogs and gone in there and maybe released them in Putin's house and everything along those lines? Because apparently
that dart frog came from 7,000 miles away. It came from like Brazil or something, which is why it's so dangerous to keep frogs in Russian prisons. People could get hurt.
They could get hurt.
They use poison, this poison that has no antidote, that apparently was harvested from a frog that lives in Brazil.
And they use it in Navalny? Is that who they use?
Yes.
Yes, that's what they said.
Now, the Russians would never do that. They don't kill political prisoners, do they?
No.
No, they don't do that.
No. They're one of the most famous, one of their earlier ones in the 60s or 70s. This guy bumps into a guy with an umbrella in a crowd and dies like a day later because the umbrella was tipped with a ball, a little ball the size of a ballpoint pen ball that was packed with poison.
Yeah, you know, the Russians are very clever at killing people through poison. I don't know what it must be, like a cultural thing.
Yeah,
you use guns.
Sasha, you spent some time in the Russian army.
In Russia, you got to use poison. It's like a European thing. You got to poison them.
But the problem with Navalny was that he was of excellent health, and in fact, he was already Russians were trying to poison him with Novichok, and it didn't work out. For some reason, he got sick, but he was able to resist it. And by the time that they decided finally to kill him, they made a decision to do it 100%. Without any gamble whether he will defeat this sickness or illness or whatever. So that when they came with this idea of Brazilian frog, and it worked. Well, it worked. What can I say?
Yeah, it definitely worked and everything like that.
Unbelievably sick people over there. Hey, speaking of which, I've been thinking about going to Odessa. Is it safe over there? They have here's the reason why. Sasha, they have an Intercontinental Hotel in Odessa. It looks like it's operational. Everything's cool. But would it be safe for me to go to Odessa? I'm not afraid of the Ukrainians. They're pretty nice. But would the Russians attack Odessa?
They attack it every day.
Yeah, they attack it every day.
Yeah, so the Canadian corner, our friend Scott from Naked at Night, is over in Ukraine right now. And really? he's visited various parts, and they have limited power. They only have a few hours of electricity a day. It's hard to sleep because of the sirens and the flashes of explosions. And there is a low chance that an explosive drone will hit close to you and like blow out your windows. But he's getting work done. He goes over there, he interviews people. Sometimes the food is good and available, sometimes it's less good. But people are living their lives over there in the middle of, they've been at war now for 4 years and under bombardment.
What's interesting is that I saw the table of help to Ukraine in the last 4 years. And for the first 3 years, 22, 23, 24, the help was about equal between US and Europeans. In 25, it was 100% European help and zero, absolute zero from US. Right. Furthermore, so let's say, okay, US is no longer helping Ukraine. Okay, that's their decision. There's nothing you can do about it. However, there is another table that shows after each meeting with US and Ukrainian and Russian delegations, the attacks on Ukrainian city is multiplying every time after this so-called peace negotiations. And it's now, Europeans are extremely angry at United States, who call Russia its friend and Europe its enemy. They can't understand how to formulate any meaningful trade policies or any business entanglement with U.S. once country thinks that way. We know that country doesn't think that way. It's one man thinks that way. But if that one man can dominate the Senate, the House, the judiciary, and everything, and then all his puppets in Senate and House and everything, they influence as the best they can the electorate of the United States. And if you say that the United States put a criminal in charge of its international policies, its business policies, and so you might as well think that all this 1/3 of the people of the United States who elected Trump, they are all criminals themselves, or if not criminals, at least idiots.
So if you want to travel to Ukraine, there are deals, which you would expect. Like if you want to go to Lviv, which is in Western Ukraine, the opposite side of the country from the war, you can find hotel deals ranging from 20 to 80 a night. If you want to get closer to the war and go to Kyiv, the fancy hotel, the Hotel Intercontinental, which Nick mentioned, that's $270 a night, but you can still find Best Westerns for like 60 to 80 a night. And you can't fly into Ukraine. You have to fly into like Poland and then take a train or a bus. But also Poland, these are, if you don't mind a little risk of getting hit by a drone, great places to visit. I believe that the pastries, and you can tell me, Sasha, I believe that the pastry game in Ukraine has to be excellent, that if you like baked goods, that this is delicious stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And remember that last summer I was in Poland. Poland is getting ready for a war with Russia. Seriously, they are sending men. Even a friend of mine had a son-in-law, 53 years old, and he was on training. And similar people of his age, his friends, they were all going through training like every few months here and there. And they're taking this very, very seriously. For them, it's not a question of if, it's more a question of when.
So Poland and Ukraine are like the buffer countries, right? They stand between Russia and the rest of Europe, right? So they have
it's not 100% true, because Poland doesn't even have a common border with Russia. It has a common border with Belarus. And if you think that Belarus is dominated by Russia, which is probably right, then, but again, it's not a direct border with Russia. Okay. Ukraine, of course, has a large border.
Yeah, large border.
But so is Finland. Finland has probably, after Ukraine, second largest border with Russia, 1,000 some kilometers. and I don't think that Russia really looking forward to fight Finland, because Finland will defeat it in no time. It will be very easy exercise, and if it will go against Finland and Poland, then the Kremlin will be taken in about 2 weeks.
Yes, Kim will be gone and everything like that. Hey, Rick, you mentioned food earlier and the great pastry and everything like that. One of our good friends, because we talk about him all the time on Dr. Patmos's show, is going after something that probably should be gone after, even though I don't agree with a lot that he does. But what is our thoughts around RFK Jr. saying ultra-processed food manufacturers hijacked the GRA's loophole to use questionable ingredients? So it looks like he's going
right. So this was a thing. This was a story on 60 Minutes last night.
Right.
And you got two hands to this argument. One is, yeah, the food we eat in America is overprocessed and can cause health problems that, I don't know, like 30% of the country is diabetic, another probably 20% is pre-diabetic. On the other hand, life expectancy in the U.S. just hit a new all-time high of 79, which means that, okay, so yeah, we might be having a lot of diabetes, but we're not being killed by our food supply. The RFK likes to say that this is the sickest generation in American history, which is not true. If you go back to 1780, life expectancy was 33. If you go back to the year 1900, it was 42. The people died like crazy. So yeah, okay, so we eat a lot of crappy food, but we are, thanks to medicine and maybe not, I mean, like my wife and I have some crappy food in the house, but we don't eat it 24/7. We eat healthy food too. We're not being killed off at us, you know. So
you're not like me. I got a group of cupcakes in here in this house. I think I had 2 or 3 of them last night and everything like that.
All right, but like, you know, if I eat a couple cupcakes, I will drop fiber gummies on myself, so I poop them out. I'll take a fat cholesterol blocker. You know, I'll take even though I don't have diabetes, I've got gray market metformin. I'll take to keep my blood sugar low. You know, yeah, we should probably eat better, but. Well, look at Trump. Trump is going to be 80 in 4 months, and he's not dying. He's got problems, but he's got the best medicine in the world. He's eaten like crap and really hasn't exercised his whole life, and he's hanging in there. So
speaking of hanging in there, apparently he's got criticism. I love to hear Jacoby's thoughts around this, because there is an iconic family. Today is President's Day, and the Teddy Roosevelt family is urging the GOP to protect public land. That was put out in the New York Times earlier today. So is anybody in the Trump administration going to listen to this idea of protecting public land? You know, we have some public land.
No, Trump is the boss of everything, and he doesn't, you know, if he thinks it's his job to dismantle every, like, he said that his second term would be vengeance, and that includes against our national parks. That, you know, that he got rid of free admission on today is President's Day, and there's free admission to national parks today. He hasn't gotten rid of that yet. I think he got rid of free admission on holidays that he doesn't like MLK Day, for instance, and he wants to turn his birthday into a free admission day. So it's all about him.
Yeah, it's all about him. Democrats are saying they're willing to spend tens of millions to reshape Virginia voting maps, and that's what some folks are talking about. And apparently Jeffries is going all in on gerrymandering with House control on the line. And I know you said that you're of the opinion, Rick, that the Democrats will take over and all along those lines. And even the former DHS Secretary Napolitano is talking about the past and future of ICE. So what's your take on this?
All right, so let's do the math. The Republicans can't even lose 3 members of the House without control switching over to the Dems. Based on Trump's approval, because there's a correlation between presidential approval and how many seats that party loses in the midterms. Current calculations say that they're on track to lose 28 seats, or almost 10 times as many seats as they could lose and keep control. So it's, you know, it's a good bet a 90% plus bet that they will lose the House. And the gerrymandering stuff. So Trump went to Texas and said, "You're a big ass state. You can redo your maps." Somebody in the White House decided that they can redo their maps and gain 5 seats for the Republicans. Right now, they have 37 seats in Congress, in the House, and it's 25-12, even though the actual election was like 52-44. Mm-hmm. And by redrawing the maps, Texas is likely to go 30-7 or 30-8. They'll gain 5 seats. And then other states like California are like, we can play that game too. And so California's redrawing and so we'll gain 5 or 6 or 7 seats. And every state is doing it. And yeah, it's overall terrible. But when every state is done, the net will probably be 1 or 2 or 3 seats.
Yeah, probably the net gain, but maybe that'll give us some control, the Democrats and everything. Rick, you live in California, and maybe Sasha's got some thoughts about this as well, but apparently a nuclear reactor was airlifted from California to Utah for testing by the military. I don't know how I feel about a whole nuclear reactor being airlifted and everything like that. So what's your take on this? Because apparently this is supposed to be a nuclear energy milestone that they airlifted this mini nuclear reactor in the first ever flight of a nuclear reactor and everything like that.
Well, if people aren't stupid, nuclear reactors are safe. The deal is, all you have to do, you get a nuclear reaction when you take a bunch of radioactive stuff, uranium, plutonium, and you put enough of it in close proximity to itself. You accumulate a lump, because the radioactive stuff is shooting out neutrons all the time. If a uranium, an exploding type of uranium atom gets hit with a neutron, it'll break into a couple pieces and plus a couple neutrons, which will break other uranium atoms, and you get what they call it a chain reaction, because it's one atom breaking, causing other atoms to break. And the way you have it not do that is you just keep the uranium widely separated. So, the screw ups historically, Chernobyl, they locked down a cooling system, and all the uranium melted into one big lump, which it's still reacting. It melded its way down into the earth, and there's nothing you can do about it. But if all you have to do is just keep the stuff apart. So
keep it apart.
I assume.
Hey, Rick, you said that he has a good chance the Republicans' good chance of losing the House. What about the Senate?
The Senate used to be the Senate used to be a lock for the Republicans, with greater than an 80% chance of the Republicans keeping it. But Trump's approval and junk like Pam Bondi going, like her performance last week, and prices continuing to rise and jobs not being, all this means that Democrats' chances of taking the Senate have gone from about 1 in 5 to maybe 1 in 3.
Well, what's the role of Venezuela going to play in this as well, in terms of the chances? Because apparently Trump is still committed to helping the Venezuela oil industry get off of the ground, because it's in ruins right now after their leader was arrested several weeks ago and everything like that.
Oil company people say that it will take like $100 billion and 10 years to get the Venezuelan oil industry back to where it should be. Right now it's a trickle because they've done no work on oil infrastructure. It's all collapsed. So I don't know, they're only making oil at less than 10% of their capacity. And oil companies have called Venezuela in its current state uninvestable.
Well, speaking of things uninvestable, apparently the Expert Tom Lee, no relation, says AI has killed software and job losses are soon to follow. So we're about to have some massive job losses due to AI. This was in some stock market news, and I know that
So here's what's
that as well.
So periodically, the experts in AI say periodically since 2020, people look at how fast AI is improving and they freak out. And right now we're in the middle of a freak out where an expert said it's coming for everybody. And last week or the week before, this movie director did put a 2-sentence prompt into a new AI engine and created a completely convincing 15-second battle on a fist fight between Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt on a rooftop. And it looks great. You'd have to watch it like 8 times to even have any idea that it's if you didn't know about AI, that to see it's so. And it's 50,
that was Dance 2.0, and ByteDance is saying it's going to add safeguards so that they don't have this anymore. Seedance,
which is the visual engine of ByteDance, is what was pumping out these clips. And clips on AI used to be like 1 second. And then they went to 5 seconds. And now Seedance is giving you 15 seconds at a time. And if you're a movie director or an aspiring director, you have no money. You could build a movie 15 seconds at a time, which makes people freak out. This director put these clips up and said, we're screwed. It's coming for us. We're done. And people got really mad at him. They didn't understand that he was like showing it not to, to be a cool guy, but to say, look, we're in trouble here.
Yeah, speaking of in trouble and everything like that, Sasha, what's going on with this rivalry and this apparently controversy in the Winter Olympics between Canada and Britain? Because apparently there's some sort of cheating row going on in curling. I didn't even know curling was that popular of a sport around the world, but apparently it is. And apparently there's some conversation on that. And I know you've been following the Olympics. So how much of a story is that in Canada and everything? Because apparently it's like a heated curling rivalry between Britain and Canada, and they're saying that there was like some illegal touching or something going on. I don't understand all of it, so maybe you can explain it to me.
That's not a big news in Canada. Curling is a very competitive sport, and there are controversy from time to time, but there is no fist fight, there is nobody kills each other, so what can you make out of it? So one side probably is more right than the other side. So what can you do with that? It's all the story, and 75 cents will buy a cup of coffee. That's basically.
There's a picture of the Canadian guy. He's on his, they get all down on their knees and he's got his finger very close to what they call the rock, which is the stone with the handle. And Sweden was it? Who was it? I don't know. Anyway, the other team is like, look, he's still touching it after the point where you're not supposed to. But the refs took a look. I think they probably did replay, and they were like, yeah, no, we don't think that he did that, and it's unappealable. Once the refs have issued their ruling, you're done.
Yeah, you're done then. Hey, Nick, speaking of that, apparently, and Jesse mentioned a fist fight, Sasha did. Apparently, there was a major fist fight in basketball, and some of the players, or at least one of the players, got suspended. I think it was in a Big East battle and everything like that. And of course, my school is part of the Big East, but Marquette wasn't involved. We've had our own problems, having a very bad losing record and everything like that. But I think he was suspended 2 games. Maybe it'll be more and everything like that. But yeah, they had a fist brawl in a basketball game. So what do you think about this basketball game erupting into a massive brawl?
Well, basketball is pretty big in Spain. It's so, like I said, the American football, forget it. It won't fly internationally, but basketball does fly internationally, flies big in Spain. Just like the University of Miami flew big in Raleigh the other day, and they beat North Carolina State University, and they beat UNC. So you have to.
Yeah, a friend of mine was at the state game. He was actually a professor at State.
They beat UNC and North Carolina State.
Let's ask Jacoby, what do you think of the new All-Star format with the 4 mini games?
Just a few things on the sports. The double touch is actually a big thing that's going on in curling. That's actually a bigger story than what we made it out to be. There is a problem because the Canadian team is both number 1 in men's and women's. They are the top team, the top dog, and now they're being accused
The
of double touching,
Commander.
which means that everybody's
Wow.
the teams that are playing them really are upset. And yeah, they had the stones removed. But yeah, US beat China on a comeback last night in curling, beat China. They were down 5-1. Actually 4-1. They came all the way back and ended up winning 6-5, if I remember. It was a good match. But in terms of the with Miami coming to Carolina, and it wasn't really a big deal because not only was Carolina coming off of a big win over Duke, which was a very emotional win. It was the last second win that happened. The Miami game was a trap game because, as you see, Miami came back and ended up winning their next game after losing to Miami. But Duke is still the top dog in the ACC. Everybody else is just playing for second right now. Miami's not even playing for second. Miami's trying to beg to get into the tournament. So holding up the cup really doesn't do anything. NC State is still battling for a good spot in the ACC tournament. But yeah, Duke is going to dominate the ACC right now because they really have a good team. Matter of fact, Duke's women's just beat Carolina yesterday. The St. John's fight was crazy. That was 6 players ejected, I think, in total. There was a big foul that happened, and that started the whole. Well, there was a bunch of bodying that happened before that. The NBA format sucks. They're still trying to figure out what's going on, Rick, with how to fix the All-Star game, because really the All-Star game is based off of the All-Star weekend. The dunk contest is the worst thing it's ever been. I mean, you have a man hit his head on the backboard and then fall and almost get concussed.
That's bad.
It's the dunk contest is a joke. They need to retire it. The best thing that happened over the weekend, basketball-wise, was the unrivaled one-on-one tournament with the women. That was awesome. That was actually pure basketball. That's what you see at every basketball court in the country, actually across the globe. Right. So if they retire either the All-Star game or retire the dunk contest, that right there, the one-on-one basketball, because it was cool to hear Jaylen Brown call out some of the other players and say, hey, look, I watched it. And he was in the All-Star game. He was like, hey, I watched it, and I would love to play I'll play Luka. I'll play anybody in that one-on-one. So they need to replace it with a one-on-one tournament.
Well, Steve Curry said he's going to recruit a bunch of players for the three-point contest. I think Damian Lillard won it this time around, but he's trying to bring some of the All-Stars, including his former teammate Klay Thomas, to the next year.
The three-point shootout, it's still not as exciting as that one-on-one tournament. It's not even close.
I've got another story from entertainment, which is a very horny version of Wuthering Heights made $82 million at the global box office over the weekend, which is a throwback. When I was a kid in the 70s, there were a lot of horny mainstream movies like Body Heat. And that kind of went away in the past couple decades because there's so much porn people can turn to and so much political division. Nobody wants to take a risk on making a super horny, sexy, R-rated mainstream movie.
But Rick, how much is the relationship still there? Because I remember back in the day, there was a lot of knockoff movies in the porn industry that would be like make knockoffs of mainstream movies, and I don't know if they still do that.
Right, so there were drive-in movies, the R-rated movies, where if you're in high school, you sneak into the drive-in to watch a movie with boobies in it. Now nobody needs that. That market got destroyed because everybody's got a freaking computer. However, there's a show called Industry, which is about the stock and tech markets. And their plot just turned in the last episode that everybody on that show is being honeypotted and blackmailed via porn, via Russia, sending like escorts out. And I Googled, like, everybody looks at porn. Everybody hates themselves for looking at creepy porn. And I'm like, is Russia behind any of this? And a lot of people think so. that Russia loves wrecking Western society, and they look for any angle. And I think porn might be an angle, though porn itself moves so fast that it does a good job all on its own without Russia's help.
It's already got the help probably of the mafia and other people like that. We've only got a few more minutes to go. Toby, what did you think of this information and another scandal that involves sports? Because apparently there was no fouls called on UNC in the UNC Duke basketball game. So they were like saying that that's almost impossible to have a game with no fouls and everything like that. But I know that the coach of UNC was trying to be diplomatic about it, but that is hard to do, is to play an entire game without a foul, even though they did do that for the first half of the Super Bowl without having any real fouls. But what would your take on that?
The game is a game. I mean, fouls happen. Yes, there were probably missed foul calls. Yes, I watched the game. Yes, when Cameron Boozer went in for his final shot, yeah, he did get fouled. That's not what lost the game for Duke, though. Yeah. I mean, they were up big. They got to play in Cameron next, and Duke will probably just dominate that game. They are better than Carolina, and especially now with Caleb Williams out for Carolina, that's going to be a big thing.
No, I think the foul situation was actually in the women's game, which was actually played.
Oh, you're talking about the women's game?
Yeah.
No, in the women's game, it was just fine. I watched it. The women's game was fine. There wasn't much. That's just a rivalry, and they play physical.
Yeah, that's just impressive. And they apparently did call a lot of that and everything like that. Just really quickly, and when they would really go to the economics. Apparently, Michael Jordan is now not just a 6-time NBA champion, but he's now a Daytona 500 winner as well. And that's because Tyler Reddick won the NASCAR's biggest race, and that was owned by Michael Jordan. So he can now claim NASCAR as one of his claims to fame and add to his North Carolina legacy, because NASCAR is definitely a North Carolina sport.
Yeah. Okay. But I was going to point out to Rick, I don't know, Rick, have you seen Wonder Man yet?
Yeah.
How did you enjoy it? I thought it was a really neat.
I liked it, but it's got the problem of every single Marvel miniseries or limited series where they take a story that they could tell in 3 hours and they stretch it to cover 8 hours or 6 hours. And I'm like, come on, like roll it along. Like Daredevil. I got so pissed at Daredevil for taking too long to tell the frickin' story.
No, I hate when they take too long.
Like the doorman part of it.
I liked that part, but then my wife made us turn off that episode because she's like, "This is a whole separate story," and because they episode 5 they pause the main story and it's a self-contained, and my wife's like, "No, let's go." I'm like, "All right."
Speaking of self-contained, before we get totally out of here and everything, and we can all go to economics if we feel like it and everything, why does it take some of these shipwreck hunters forever to find a ship? Because apparently the wreck of a steamer lost in 1872, and Lake Michigan is big, but it ain't that big, was just found in Lake Michigan. So they found the Lac La Belle wreck and everything like that some 150 years plus.
It's limited by technology and luck. But, I think, in the future, people will search for stuff by releasing swarms of little AI robots to like just walk the sea floor and find all sorts of new stuff.
The technology is what keeps us from exploring the sea as much as we can. I mean, the amount of you have to think about the amount of pressure put on anything that goes down there. So trying to find anything really is tough because you can't even see through it. So you got to figure out a way to visualize it. Then you got to find whatever's down there because we don't realize that the seafloor is like your airport. When you go to the airport and you stand on the escalator, that flat escalator, basically, that transit piece that moves you forward, the seafloor is moving. It's not moving fast, but it is steadily moving. So over the past 100 years, where we have had ships that have wrecked, they're not in the same spot they were 100 years ago.
That's true.
So the seafloor is churning, and then dealing with the plate tectonics. I mean, we probably missed some ships that have been crushed or moved along or, sucked away. I mean, there's just a lot of neat stuff on the bottom of the seafloor. What's at the bottom of the brine pools that are at the bottom of the sea? Because the brine pools are nothing but another ocean up under the ocean. Then evidently under the crust of the ocean, you have another body of water. So what's sitting in that? There's just a lot of stuff that we can't get to at the bottom of the ocean due to the fact that the technology, we don't have it.
Once we start releasing millions and tens of millions of little underwater drones that can handle the pressure, they'll find a ton of stuff. I'm writing this science fiction novel where one company, Venice and other islands are being engulfed by the sea. If you released like 15 million little digger robots, they dig under the island and then they slowly, a millimeter every 3 weeks, they lift up the entire island. You could rehabilitate Venice.
Yeah, you could do that, but I'm waiting for them to discover the Loch Ness monster because we know that the Loch Ness is probably real. So I'm just waiting for them to find that.
Again, that's a job for little undersea drones. You can set up a drag net across the whole Loch Ness, which is not that big, and you can see anything that's there.
Yeah, and on that note, we get ready to get out of here. I think Economics Monday is going on as we're speaking, and Media Monday will be coming later. And then I've got to help Kim with the timeshare show because she's actually, I think, out of town and everything like that. So I'll be running that production and everything like that. So right now, let's get out of here now. Hopefully see y'all in the Economic Show.